An actor is all Elizabeth Montgomery ever wanted to be, and she succeeded as few in Hollywood ever do. She died of cancer at age 62 in her Los Angeles home, surrounded by her family.
It's been 30 years since Bewitched star Elizabeth Montgomery passed away, but the world still can't stop talking about her. Stories about secret loves and the life she kept hidden from the spotlight followed her across decades.
We didn't know until quite late, until we started working with scripts and things like that, and it just kind of worked out that I had a boy and Samantha had a girl. I love it. I just love it. And we have a marvelous time together.
Now, after years of silence, her children are finally speaking out. And what they've revealed has left fans wondering how much of what we heard was rumor and how much was the truth. The star who cast a spell on America. There are some faces on television that never really disappear. No matter how many years go by, people still remember them. For millions of viewers around the world, one of those faces belongs to Elizabeth Montgomery, the beautiful blonde who played Samantha Stevens in the classic show Bewitched. With just a twitch of her nose, she could turn everyday problems into moments of magic. And she made people smile every single week. When Bewitched first aired in 1964, television was a very different world. Most shows followed the same pattern, with happy families, polite conversations, and women whose main job was taking care of the home. Then, Bewitched aired. It was funny, creative, and full of imagination. But what made it special wasn't only the magic tricks or the clever storylines. It was Elizabeth Montgomery herself. She was funny, smart, full of life, and viewers absolutely loved her. Elizabeth played the part of Samantha, a witch who married a regular man and tried to live a normal life. The idea was a simple one, but the way she brought that character to life made it unforgettable. She did more than just pretend to be a magical woman. In fact, she was the magic. Her charm and energy made people believe that someone like Samantha could really exist. Elizabeth's acting was so natural that she never seemed like she was performing. She made the character warm and playful, and the kind of person everyone wished they could have as a friend or neighbor. At the time, Bewitched was unlike anything else on TV. It broke rules without trying too hard. Samantha wasn't a weak or silly character like many women on television back then. She was confident, clever, and often the one solving problems when her husband couldn't. In a way, she became one of the first strong female characters people saw every week in their living rooms. Many now call her an early symbol of feminism, even though the word wasn't widely used at the time. Elizabeth didn't plan to become a feminist icon, though. She just wanted to play Samantha honestly, but by doing that, she showed that women could be strong and gentle, smart and funny, all at the same time. She didn't have to raise her voice or act tough. She simply was powerful because she believed in herself. By the end of its first season, Bewitched was one of the highest-rated shows in America. It stayed in the top 10 for years, with millions tuning in each week. Elizabeth's performance earned her 9 Emmy nominations throughout her career, 4 of them for Bewitched alone. Critics praised her timing and her ability to make magic feel real without special effects. But even though Elizabeth lit up our screens for years, there wasn't much light in her childhood. Growing up in a famous family came with shadows of its own, born into stardom, raised in shadows. Elizabeth didn't just stumble into Hollywood, like is the case of many celebrities. She was actually born into it. Her father, Robert Montgomery, was one of the big movie stars of the 1930s and 40s. Her mother, Elizabeth Bryan Allen, was also an actress. So fame was part of the family, and the Montgomery name carried weight in the film world. From the outside, it looked like Elizabeth had a dream life. She grew up in a beautiful home, surrounded by parties and famous faces. But inside that world of glitz, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. Her father was strict, proud, and distant. He expected excellence from everyone, especially his daughter. Robert was a perfectionist who believed in discipline above everything else. He ran his house like a movie set, and he told Elizabeth how to walk, talk, and behave in public. As a child, she wanted his love, but what she got most of the time was criticism. Every smile had to be perfect, every answer rehearsed. This kind of pressure can have a certain negative influence on a person. For Elizabeth, it made her shy, but also determined. She learned early that acting could be her way of being seen. When she performed, she wasn't the timid daughter in her father's shadow anymore. She was herself, and she was free. After finishing school, she decided to follow in her parents' footsteps. She studied acting in New York and soon started getting small roles on television. Her father wasn't thrilled about this, as you can imagine. He wanted her to earn success the hard way, without using the family name. That pushed Elizabeth even harder, because she wanted to prove that she could shine on her own. But even as she built her career, the shadow of her father's fame was always there. People in Hollywood gossiped that she only got roles because of him, which hurt her deeply. She worked twice as hard to prove them wrong, and by the time Bewitched came along, she had already appeared in several TV dramas and had earned a solid reputation as a talented actress. When she became Samantha Stevens, the world finally saw Elizabeth for who she really was. She wasn't just Robert Montgomery's daughter anymore. She was a star in her own right. Still, fame didn't make her forget where she came from. Even though her relationship with her father remained tense, she admitted in later interviews that his tough love had pushed her to succeed. But as one would expect, her childhood left some scars. She often said that she didn't want her own children to grow up the way she did, under constant pressure and public attention. She wanted them to have freedom and real affection, and that's something she made sure of as a mother. A life in love and turmoil. Sad childhood aside, Elizabeth's adult life still wasn't all rainbows, even though everything looked perfect on screen. Just like many Hollywood stars, she searched for love, peace, and understanding, but never quite found them all at the same time. Incredibly, she married 4 times. Her first marriage was to Frederick Gallatin Kaman, a man from a wealthy family. They married in 1954, but the union didn't last long. Elizabeth was young and full of dreams, and Frederick wanted a quiet, traditional life. She wanted to act, explore, and to live freely, so after less than a year, they went their separate ways. Not long after, she married actor Gig Young. At first, it seemed like a match made in Hollywood. Gig was charming and popular, and Elizabeth believed she had found someone who understood her world. But away from the spotlight, things were pretty rough. Gig struggled with alcohol and had a temper that often turned cruel. Elizabeth tried to make it work, but the relationship drained her. And after 7 painful years, she left him. Her third marriage was to director-producer William Asher, and for a while, it looked like she had finally found happiness. Together, they created Bewitched, the show that changed her life. William directed the series, and Elizabeth starred in it. They worked side by side, building a show that became a piece of television history. They had 3 children together, and for a time, their home was filled with laughter and light. But fame can be a heavy thing. The pressure of working together, raising kids, and living under the public eye slowly wore them down. William had affairs, and Elizabeth felt betrayed. However, during the 8th year of the show, Elizabeth found love with director Richard Michaels. He too was married, but they got into an affair, which led to the end of their respective marriages. They moved in together right after the show ended, but unfortunately, their affair ended shortly after, only lasting 2.5 years. After that, she met actor Robert Foxworth. This time, Elizabeth took her time before marrying again. They lived together for nearly 20 years before finally tying the knot in 1993. Robert wasn't like the others, though, because he treated her with kindness and respect. He made her laugh again, and friends said he brought peace into her life, which was something she had searched for her whole life. Elizabeth often said that her biggest joy came from her children and the simple moments she shared with them. Away from the cameras, she loved gardening, cooking, and just being a mom. She once said in an interview that all she ever wanted was a quiet life, a good laugh, and people who truly care. Behind the scenes of Bewitched. When Bewitched hit TV screens in 1964, it was an instant success. People loved the idea of a beautiful witch trying to live a normal suburban life with her mortal husband. It was funny, light, and different from anything else on television. Families gathered around their TVs each week to watch Samantha twitch her nose and make magic happen. But what was happening behind the scenes was not a reflection of what we were seeing on screen. In fact, there was apparently a lot of tension. At the start, Elizabeth was thrilled about the show. She loved the idea of playing Samantha, and the show gave her a chance to be both funny and smart, which showed off her natural warmth. Audiences fell in love with her instantly. Still, it wasn't easy playing the same role year after year. The show ran for 8 seasons, and during that time, Elizabeth's life changed a lot. She had children, her marriage to director William Asher went through ups and downs, and the pressure of fame never stopped. Even though she smiled on screen, she often felt tired and stressed behind the scenes. One of the biggest challenges she experienced was as a result of her co-star, Dick York, who played her husband, Darren Stevens. York was kind and professional, but he suffered from chronic back pain after a serious injury years earlier. The pain grew worse as the show went on, and some days he could barely stand. Elizabeth often helped him through scenes, giving him support both as a friend and co-star. Eventually, York had to leave the show in 1969 because of his health. The producers replaced him with another actor, Dick Sargent, and hoped no one would notice the change. But of course, fans did. Even though Sargent did his best, the chemistry between him and Elizabeth was different. Viewers missed the spark that York had with her. Still, Elizabeth kept going, always giving her best. Away from the camera, things were also tricky. William Asher, her husband, directed many of the episodes. Working so closely together brought both good and bad moments. At first, they were a perfect team. But as their marriage began to fall apart, the tension started to show on set. Elizabeth tried to keep things professional, but it was hard. Crew members later said that she would sometimes film scenes with tears in her eyes. Despite all these struggles, Elizabeth kept the show running smoothly. She was the heart of Bewitched, and everyone respected her for her professionalism and kindness. She treated the cast and crew like family. Agnes Moorehead, who played Samantha's mother, Endora, became one of her closest friends. The two shared a deep bond that lasted even after the show ended. By the early 70s, however, Bewitched was losing its magic. The storylines were starting to repeat, and Elizabeth was growing tired. She wanted to try new roles and spend more time with her children. In 1972, after 8 years and 254 episodes, she decided it was time to say goodbye. When the final episode aired, fans were sad to see it go. But few people knew what Elizabeth had gone through to keep the show alive. She had worked through pain, exhaustion, and personal heartbreak, all while making it look easy. Bewitched remains one of the most loved shows in television history, and a lot of that credit goes to Elizabeth Montgomery. She carried the show on her shoulders, giving the world a character who was loving and unforgettable. In fact, we could say that she was the magic that kept Bewitched alive. The activist the world forgot. As an actress, Elizabeth was wildly loved. People loved who they saw on screen, but what most people do not know is that she is even more lovable off-screen. When the cameras stopped rolling, she became a woman who spoke up when others stayed quiet, and who used her fame to fight for what she believed in. The truth is, Elizabeth never liked being called a celebrity. She thought that fame should mean more than fancy clothes and red carpets. To her, it was a tool she could use to help others. While most stars tried to stay out of serious issues, Elizabeth stepped right into them. She cared about fairness, peace, and kindness, and she was never afraid to take a stand. In the 1960s, when Bewitched made her one of the most famous women on TV, America was going through a lot of change. There were protests about civil rights, the Vietnam War, and women's equality. Elizabeth joined these movements where she supported peace groups and spoke out against the war, even though it made some people angry. She didn't care about losing fans. She cared about saving lives. She also believed strongly in women's rights. At a time when Hollywood often treated actresses like decoration, Elizabeth demanded respect. She wanted women to be shown as strong and smart. When scripts made female characters seem weak or foolish, she refused to play them. She often told friends that she wanted her daughter to grow up in a world where women had the same chances as men. But her activism became even stronger later in her life. In the 80s, the world was facing something new and frightening: the AIDS crisis. Many people were scared to talk about it, and those who had the disease were treated badly. Even in Hollywood, most actors stayed quiet. But again, Elizabeth didn't. She spoke up for people living with AIDS and supported the charities that helped them. Her longtime friend and Bewitched co-star Dick Sargent came out as gay in the early 1990s. It was a brave move back then, and Elizabeth stood by him completely. She told reporters that love was love, and that no one should be ashamed of who they are. In 1992, when Dick was invited to be a Grand Marshal at the Los Angeles Gay Pride Parade, Elizabeth proudly walked beside him. Fans who saw them said she was smiling the whole time, waving to the crowd, happy to stand for something that mattered. Elizabeth also gave her time to help children and people with disabilities. She worked with a group called Learning Ally, which recorded books for people who couldn't read traditional print because of blindness or learning issues. She didn't just lend her name, she actually went into the studio, read stories, and recorded them herself. She wanted kids to know that someone cared about them, even if they'd never meet her. In the late 80s and early 90s, she also began lending her voice to political documentaries. She narrated two powerful films, Cover Up, Behind the Iran-Contra Affair, and The Panama Deception. Both movies questioned how the U.S. government handled secret wars and foreign conflicts. The Panama Deception even went on to win an Academy Award. And Elizabeth didn't do it for attention. She did it because she believed people needed to know the truth. Even though she had strong opinions, Elizabeth never liked showing off her activism. She didn't brag about her donations or try to get media coverage for her charity work. People who knew her personally said she did most things quietly. If she saw someone struggling, she helped them. If a cause needed a voice, she gave hers. But she never wanted credit. Elizabeth never tried to change the whole world. She only wanted to make it a little better. And for the people she helped and the causes she fought for, she did exactly that. Her final months. In early 1995, Elizabeth was still full of energy. She had just finished working on a TV movie. On set, she laughed with the crew and gave her usual best performance. No one could tell that anything was wrong. But inside, Elizabeth was hiding something serious. Something even she didn't know the full truth about yet. It started like the flu. She felt weak, tired, and often had stomach pains. Friends told her to rest, but Elizabeth was not the kind of person who liked to complain. She thought she would get better with time. For weeks, she pushed through the pain and kept working. When the discomfort didn't go away, she finally went to the doctor. The news was worse than anyone expected. Elizabeth was diagnosed with colon cancer. By the time doctors found it, the cancer had already spread to her liver. It was too late for surgery or strong treatments. The doctors were honest with her and told her that she didn't have much time left. Elizabeth's family and friends were shocked. She was only 62 years old and still full of life. Her husband, actor Robert Foxworth, stayed by her side through everything. He said later that Elizabeth faced her illness with courage and grace. She didn't cry in front of people or talk much about fear. She wanted her loved ones to remember her as strong and peaceful. Elizabeth made a brave choice. She decided not to spend her last days in a hospital surrounded by machines. Instead, she wanted to be at home, in the comfort of the Beverly Hills house she shared with Robert. Her children often visited, and her close friends came to see her. She loved sitting by the window, looking at the garden, and listening to soft music. Even during those difficult weeks, Elizabeth's kindness never faded. When friends called to check on her, she often turned the conversation around to ask about them. She didn't want people to feel sorry for her, but wanted them to keep smiling. Those who saw her near the end said she stayed calm and gentle. She didn't talk much about her illness, but she made peace with it. She was grateful for her life, her children, and the people who had supported her. Her husband later said that she accepted death not with fear, but with quiet strength. On May 18, 1995, just 8 weeks after her diagnosis, Elizabeth passed away peacefully in her sleep with Robert by her side. It was 8:22 in the morning. She had turned 62 only a month earlier. News of her death shocked Hollywood and fans around the world as expected. Many had no idea she was even sick. She had kept her illness private because she didn't want to cause worry or draw attention. Tributes poured in from co-stars, friends, and fans who had grown up watching Bewitched. A memorial service was held a month later, on June 18th, at the Cannon Theater in Beverly Hills. It was filled with music, stories, and love. Jazz legend Herbie Hancock played a tribute, and friends like Dominic Dunn shared warm memories of the early days when Elizabeth was still chasing her dream in New York. Her husband read some of the hundreds of sympathy letters sent by fans. There were tears, but there was also laughter, and everyone remembered her smile. Elizabeth's ashes were later placed at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles, the same resting place as many other Hollywood legends. Her family said they wanted her to be somewhere peaceful, surrounded by beauty, just like she had lived. For years after her death, Robert Foxworth often spoke about how special she was. He said Elizabeth was not only his wife, but also his best friend. She was kind to everyone, he said, and she never wanted anyone to feel small. Even now, decades later, her children and fans still talk about her warmth and her spirit. She left behind a lesson to live with kindness, stay true to yourself, and to face even the hardest times with courage. But her death brought on more than sympathies from those she left behind. A lot of people began spinning rumors and speculations about her life, and some of these rumors, as you will see, were quite shocking. What the public never knew. When a person becomes a star, stories begin to follow them. In fact, it is unavoidable. And for Elizabeth, those stories never stopped, even after she sadly passed away. Some were about her charm, others about her private life, and many were only half true. As Bewitched became one of the most popular shows of the 60s, the press wanted to know everything about its lead actress. Elizabeth was beautiful, confident, and full of life, but she also kept her personal life on a down low, which only made people more curious. The less she shared, the more the public guessed. Soon, rumors began to grow. One of the biggest and most talked about rumors was her supposed connection to President John F. Kennedy. They moved in some of the same social circles in the early 60s. Both were known for their charm and good looks, and both were often seen at high-profile gatherings. Some people claimed they were close friends, while others said it went further. But no real proof was ever found. Her biographer, Herbie J. Pilato, made it clear that there was no solid evidence of a romance. Still, the story lived on, repeated by tabloids and fans who wanted to believe that Hollywood's favorite witch had once caught the attention of America's most famous president. Other rumors focused on her emotional struggles. Some reporters wrote that Elizabeth battled sadness and anxiety in private. A few even claimed that behind her warm smile, she carried a deep loneliness. There were times when she avoided interviews or public events, which only made people talk more. But close friends later said she was simply private and preferred peace away from the spotlight. She was known to be thoughtful and sensitive, not broken or unstable, as some stories tried to paint her. Hollywood in the 60s and 70s was a place that thrived on gossip. Tabloids could turn a single photo into a scandal, and stars had little power to fight back. Elizabeth became a regular target because she didn't play along. She wasn't the type to go to every party or give interviews about her personal life. Some writers took her silence as a sign she had something to hide, and others simply used her name to sell magazines. A strange rumor once claimed that she practiced witchcraft in real life. This idea came from her famous role as Samantha Stevens. Fans loved her so much that some started to believe she had real magical powers. Articles joked about it, but a few readers took it seriously. Too seriously, in fact, because the rumor kept returning, especially after Bewitched ended, and people missed the character they had grown to love. Another story that often appeared in the press was that Elizabeth lived a double life. A cheerful public face and a private world filled with secrets. Some magazines hinted at hidden affairs or a secret love life. None of these stories were ever proven to be true, though, and over time, they became part of her myth, repeated so many times that some people forgot they were just rumors. Yet, for all the whispers and guesses, the people who knew Elizabeth best never rushed to defend or explain her, until years later, when her children finally did. Her children speak. For most of the world, Elizabeth will always be Samantha, but to her children, she was just Mom. She had 3 children, Bill, Robert, and Rebecca, all from her marriage to television director William Asher. It was during those busy, Bewitched years that she became a mother, and instead of hiding her pregnancies, the show worked them right into the story. Viewers watched Samantha become a mom, while Elizabeth did the same in real life. Her oldest son, Bill Asher, has talked about what it was like growing up with 2 parents in show business. He said their home life wasn't about fame or television at all. At home, Elizabeth wasn't America's sweetheart. She was just the woman who made pancakes in the morning and helped with homework at night. In interviews, Bill said his mom had a gentle kind of strength. She didn't yell, and she didn't try to act like a star. She laughed easily, loved cooking, and often worked in her garden when she needed peace. He remembered that even though she was exhausted after long days on set, she always found time for her kids. She would come home, change out of her costumes, and sit with them, asking about school or reading them bedtime stories. The children often visited the Bewitched set. Their father, William Asher, was the director, so it felt like a second home. Bill said the cast and crew adored her because she was kind to everyone, from the camera operators to the extras. She didn't act like she was better than anyone else, even though she was the star of the show. When Bewitched ended, Elizabeth started turning down more acting offers. She wanted a slower life, which meant more time for her children. Rebecca, her daughter, once said that her mom preferred quiet family dinners to Hollywood parties. Fame never mattered much to her, and what she cared about was raising her kids to be kind and grounded. Since she passed, her children have kept her memory alive. They've appeared in documentaries, sharing stories about her humor, warmth, and how much she cared for people. In Elizabeth Montgomery, A Bewitched Life, Bill spoke proudly about how his mother worked hard to balance everything, including the fame, pressure, and motherhood, and still managed to stay kind. They also want people to remember her not just as Samantha, but as the woman behind the magic. She wasn't perfect, sure, but she was real. She cared deeply, gave generously, and taught her children to do the same. What are your thoughts? Could all those rumors have been clues to what was actually going on? Or were they just Hollywood lies that refused to die? Leave your answers in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoy this video, please click on the next one on your screen.